There was a lawsuit with a major retailer that actually did settle, and that retailer had to pay $7.5 million to a customer who was shopping for a watermelon out of a Gaylord, got his foot stuck, turned, and broke his hip. Again, when we're looking at OSHA versus, customer safety, the cost of that, right? And then the branding issues that you get around that are quite large. Everybody says, well, it's a nice to have, it's not a must have. Is it the law? Well, it's not necessarily the law, but it is in case law. And attorneys are really good at using case law to sell for their clients.
Right.
And those are just the ones that we're seeing, right? That are coming out into the public. There are so many cases that are settled behind the scenes that you don't even see the dollar amount for.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Marketing Blender Show. I'm your host, Daisy McCarty, and today I have Kimberly and Simon from SafeStrap with me today. We are very excited to be talking about a topic that should matter to every family and every store that serves families in the U.S. because it's about customer safety. So, welcome, Kimberly. Welcome, Simon. Glad to have you guys on the show. I wanted to start out with this question. When retailers are thinking about safety, what is the thing that they focus on, and what are some of the things they tend to miss?
I think there's a very clear answer to that. Retailers typically focus on OSHA safety because there's such a litany of fines behind OSHA safety. So it's a huge focus, and OSHA safety is pretty much focused on employee safety rather than customer safety. So that would be their key focus. And what they're really not looking at, perhaps as closely as they should, would be customer safety and what's happening to the customer. They are focused on certain items like making sure that there are mats inside doorways for rainy days so that you're not bringing water in and creating slip and fall issues. But they don't go a lot beyond customer safety, a lot beyond that. Um, the focus is employee safety and staying away from those OSHA fines.
Sure. And I think the interesting thing here is that OSHA fines, I worked with an OSHA consulting company for 8 years, a lot of familiarity with how that actually works. The OSHA fines are not nearly as steep as a lawsuit from a customer that's been injured in the store. So there's a lot of focus on the thing that's it's definitely a risk and needs to be addressed. But from a financial perspective, if a customer or a child is hurt in the store, that's a much bigger financial threat.
Sure, they're both up there. So it's, we have heard that OSHA fines are a line item for retailers. They look at them all the time. They focus on trying to drive that number down. And the fines are pretty regular. So they're focused on OSHA all year long with their safety team. But when they do have a customer issue in the store, which is few and far between, as you said, those can be extremely expensive. And there's a whole sector of the legal industry that focuses on addressing customer injuries and trying to get as much money out of the retailer as they possibly can.
You mentioned something there where they actually have a line item. They know that OSHA fines are a thing. They know that no store is ever 100% safe. It sounds like they're viewing it as an operations issue. So you've got things that happen on the floor, that's ops. What should marketing and leadership be thinking about when it comes to safety issues within the store?
I would say looking at safety issues through the lens of the customer. So the customer has obviously a different focus when they walk into the store to make sure that they're having a safe shopping experience. They're not thinking about the same nuances that retail operations is. They want to make sure that their family, their children, can get in the store and out of the store without an injury, without running into a problem. That there's nothing dangerous. There's nothing to trip over. They're not going to get their children are not going to get run over by other shoppers. That the shopping carts are in safe operating condition. That there's a way to control their children if their children are in the store rather than just letting them run wild. They're looking for right from the time they get out of their car in a well lit environment. They're looking for a safe journey into the store, through the store, and out of the store and back out into their car.
I know my parents had 9 children, so containing them in a grocery store setting was incredibly difficult. Just keeping us from putting 100 things in our mouth is, that can be a struggle. Kimberly, as a mom who has been through the shopping experience, What were the things that you looked at within a shopping environment for, is this safe for my kid? Am I able to do what I need to do and still, have enough of an eye on them?
Being in a s employed by a safety company, I think that, I, as a parent, wasn't really looking for safety as much as how does this store make me feel? Do I really feel like I can come in and I call it nesting. I think moms like to nest in their cart because you want to browse and you want to peruse and you want to kind of check out the new products and those kind of things. So I think especially when I was shopping with my infant in a car seat, that was 24 years ago. So, you could pop it up on the cart and it felt like it clicked in. That was really great for me because I felt like my child was safe in that area. And then I could browse and I could do the things that I want to do. The nice thing about bringing my child into the store in a car seat was is if he was asleep or if it was during his nap time or whatever, that was even better for me because I could take even more time to go through the store. So I think, to retailers, it might look like safety, but to parents, I think it looks more like customer experience.
For sure. And to that point, safety is a feeling for a lot of us, but it's not necessarily something that rises up to the surface unless we have something that makes us feel unsafe. That, yeah, I'm in an environment where I feel comfortable. That's definitely something that, as a parent myself, yeah, exactly. I want to be able to walk in, make sure that, yeah, this is not a hazard course that I'm running through. This is not a tough mudder like going to
Sure.
be walking through with my child. I think also from just from a marketing standpoint, having that sense of being a destination, a place to go to. I know we were talking earlier about specific store brands where that it just feels like, ooh, this is a destination to go to. And one serious accident in a store where a customer or a customer's child is injured, that's a PR black eye that can take a long time to go away.
Especially in this environment where those PR black eyes are exacerbated by social media. I mean, if they get out, we just had an incident recently where social media was involved in a retail store, and we had a mom influencer with 1 million followers talking about a particular store here in Texas that I'm sure the store was cringing at what was being exposed, and ultimately they resolved it, but it was a black eye, nothing that they would have been able to prepare for. They could have prepared for it probably, but it came out of the blue for them.
And I think that's why we're here, right? We want to try to educate retailers and parents of things that might be overlooked, both in the customer experience, which is ultimately safety. Yeah.
Sure. So, when you're looking at safety as a competitive advantage, is there any awareness among store managers and corporate leadership that safety is actually something that can give them an edge if they're showcasing it to their customers and educating their customers about how to use safety devices in their store? Or is that an area where there's still also a lot of education that
I
needs to
think
be
it's a little bit being overlooked. There's been times in history, and a great example of that would have been when the child seats and Safe Strap manufacturers, the child restraints on shopping carts, when they first came out, there were retailers around the country that did huge PR pushes behind we're bringing in child restraints on our shopping carts. And we've seen the video clips and we've seen the newspaper clips, and in
Yeah,
some
from the
cases they
80s.
won
Yeah.
awards, they got national coverage, state coverage. They had dignitaries at their stores congratulating them on their focus on child safety. And then as time went on and they became a standard in the stores, we're seeing an opportunity for retailers to refocus on safety through the customer's lens at a whole different level to give them that competitive advantage.
And I was going to say for me, I feel like COVID really changed the game, right? Because when you have a world pandemic, people were worried about getting groceries into stores, getting it in and getting it out. Then we saw kind of delivery come onto the scene. You had pickup and things like that. And so I don't feel like stores were really focused on looking at the store level. They were just trying to get the groceries to the people, right? And then afterwards, I think that because people have returned to brick and mortar, there's this real push now, I think, from customers that are wanting these stores to look and feel a certain way. And I think the attention and the dollars need to be looked at on those different items so that the safety and the customer experience comes back because customers are back in stores now.
They are, and we've seen the data to back that up. It's a destination for moms who are like, I need to get out of this house and I'm going to pack my kids and take them with me to one place where I know I can get stuff done. And hopefully, it's going to be a safe and enjoyable experience for everyone. And the kids have stuff to look at and ask for and beg for. And so, one of the things that we also heard at Mom 2.0 was that there are some stores that moms are choosing to go to and they will not go somewhere else because of specific safety devices that are in the store that they can't get at just any retailer. Are you hearing that from the moms that you've interviewed as well? That they're like, "Oh, this is the I go to this store because I can get this."
Without a doubt.
Get.
Yeah.
With that, we're hearing it, and we pass those comments on to retailers. But
Yeah, we recently attended Mom 2.0, and that was pretty eye-opening for me. It was interesting because we were there promoting seatbelt safety and a newer item that most moms don't know about, which is called the Safe Dot. But moms were coming up to us and saying, "Oh my gosh, I love going to Target. My kids love going to Target because they have the shop along."
Yes.
And when you ask them about it, it's because they're trying to manage multiple kids. And sometimes kids end up inside of shopping carts, and that's really unsafe. And the shop along allows kids to get on and off and help their parents shop, which is really nice. Some of the moms were saying that their kids like the face forward
Yes. It feels like an
aspect.
amusement park ride. Ooh, I'm
Right.
going up for a ride, not I'm being drug along.
Right, right. Yeah, so I think, that's probably one of the biggest ones that I've heard. They were coming up and talking about a product. Of course, they didn't know what it was called, but they were talking about a product of ours that they love to use, and they seek out certain stores because it's there.
two powerful ones that I saw, and they were so we do a lot of testing at stores, and we would get feedback from customers as they were walking out. And right here in Texas, and this was a few years ago when Kroger was putting the Safe Dock, which the Safe Dock holds the infant carrier on a shopping cart. When they were testing it in I think in the Houston market, and we were interviewing customers as they were leaving, and I remember talking to one woman. I have a recording of it where she said, "I am not a Kroger customer. I don't want to be a Kroger customer. I am here because they have this piece of equipment. I am an HEB customer." And for me, it was okay. I've got to show this to HEB. I've got to show this to Kroger. I didn't know where to start, but it was powerful. So here was a mom that chose to switch stores to a store she didn't really want to be at because they had the equipment that made her shopping experience safer and more convenient. And the other one, you and I were out in Colorado where we interviewed a couple that were using the Safe Dock. It's a great story, Kimberly.
It was
The
the
shop
shop
along.
along though. But yeah, we were shooting some training videos in a store, and a couple of parents came in and had two kids with them. And it was interesting because we asked if they could give us some feedback about it. What did they think about it? And it was funny because they didn't even live in that neighborhood. They were saying that they drove 20 extra minutes past the store that's right next to their house because the shop along was available at that store for them. They talked about how their kids behaved better, which made it the mental load of a parent to try and shop while your kids are, up and running around or having problems or issues. They could sit in the seat, they could watch their phone or their tablet. They could, again, as if they're older, they could interact and help mom shop. It was just easier for them.
For
Yeah.
sure. And I was hearing the same thing at Mom 2.0 as well. I would ask people, "How many extra miles would you go?" And they were like, "I don't care. If it makes it where it's safe and convenient for me to shop, that's where I'm gonna go." I think retailers need to hear that from moms because it's such a powerful message. And I know you've interviewed dozens of store managers who were like, once they put in the Safe Dock or once they put in the shop online, they're like, parents are going crazy over this. And, they just don't realize uh, at every opportunity that they have to make it more safe and convenient, they're building so much more customer loyalty. And guess what? Moms all talk to each other.
Yeah.
They absolutely do. The feedback that we get when we put these in test is incredible, absolutely incredible. And we do those exit interviews and then collect those interviews and send them off to the retailers. And the retailers are blown away when they watch the feedback from customers. They're really focused on this segment of their customer base. And when these customers walk out of the store and they have so much to say about the equipment, they're like, we had no idea that they would be so into this piece of equipment.
For sure. Well, we have to switch gears just a little bit. We've been talking about things that makes mom happy, but there are some pretty staggering safety statistics and accident statistics about the number of kids get injured in retail stores every year. Simon, you're the numbers guy. You want to tell us the cold hard facts about
Sure,
this?
it is. It's interesting. There is a in the U.S. There's a system called NICE data, and I believe that stands for National Injury Electronic Surveillance System. And it's data is collected in the hospital systems when a sample set of hospitals around the country, and that information is then sent to a federal database, and they are able to monitor all sorts of accident rates, whether it's over burns or new toys or whatever, and they that's generally where these recalls start. And in the early 2000s, they were watching the number of children being injured in shopping carts and realized the numbers were around a little over 24,000 children a year in the United States were ending up in the hospital from injuries from shopping carts. And that may be falling out of a shopping cart, falling out of the basket, pulling the shopping cart down on top of them from the side. But the numbers were staggering. And it was, in fact, still is, the leading cause of head related injuries to children under the age of 4. So around that time, the Consumer Product Safety Commission got involved, Ann Brown, and she moved to ASTM, working with the retail industry and the safety companies that were serving the retail industry to develop a standard that would reduce the accident rates. And that standard put shopping carts, seat belts on every shopping cart, made it mandatory on every shopping cart. In fact, if a shopping cart has a broken or a missing seatbelt, it is now required under the standard to be taken out of service. That alone had a tremendously positive effect. So the numbers went from over 24,000. More recently, we saw the numbers down to around 12,500, which is still an unbelievably high number. 12,500 children a year are being injured by shopping carts. And probably one of the main reasons for that is new parents entering that, enter as they're raising their children for the first time. They just don't realize that the hazard rates around shopping carts can be so high. So in some cases, they're allowing their kids to stand in shopping carts or ride in the basket or
Hold on to the end of it.
yeah, holding
Yeah.
on to the end of it. Exactly. Stand around the side, whatever is making their job easier while they're shopping in the store. And they just have no idea how dangerous shopping carts can be. But, to give you a good sense that children, when they fall out of a shopping cart, are typically, if they stand up, the last part of their body to leave the shopping cart is their head. Sorry, it's their feet. Head first into shelves or things on the shelves, or onto the hard floor. So the injuries are pretty tough to read, and they're pretty gruesome. So we work really hard to try and raise awareness around shopping cart safety, but the numbers are still very high.
And I know there's been a lot of education around this. Now we have on the seat flap on inside the carts, there's instructions on don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And yet there are still a lot of parents who are not using the seat belt, even if it is available. So, helping stores make sure every cart has a seat belt. And then, obviously you guys do a lot of education on the consumer side, buckle them up every time there's little wigglers. So it was really gratifying to be a part of that outreach this past year, reaching at least 2 million moms with that safety message. And we're continuing to cultivate our Safe Baby Social Squad just to make sure that parents are aware of the risk and what they can do to help their own family and the families that they care about.
Yeah, and I like the way that you talked about the fourth symbol on the seat flap. That's probably something good to talk about as well. So back in 2010, the Consumer Product Safety Commission approached all the shopping cart companies, and I was actually working for a shopping cart company at the time, and came to Philadelphia, and we all agreed that that fourth symbol should be added to the seat flap. I don't think retailers really know about this. The fourth symbol says that a mom or parent should no longer put their child car seat up in that area where I was telling you I would snap mine in. So it's a really different change. In 2011, there was actually a death in one of the divisions of a major retailer. Um, and I think you saw like the Home Depot, you saw the guy catching the baby that was in the carrier. So it got to be really prevalent accidents involving car seats falling off of shopping carts. So in 2012, we came up with a solution called the Safe Dock. and it's a universal car seat docking station that gets added to the shopping cart, just a few shopping carts per store. So that when mom or dad or caregiver walks in with that baby in a car seat, and we know 97% of the time they do that, they have a really safe place to put that car seat on the shopping cart. And it gets rid of that liability on that fourth symbol seat flap. The alternative is they're going to have to set it down inside of the basket, which means they have no room to shop,
Right.
which I think retailers should be concerned about as well. We know that they're a very high dollar shopper. They shop the most. They buy double the quantity of most other shoppers. So feeding into that and giving mom what she needs to shop or dad what they need to shop. Um, I think that fourth symbol and the 12,000 injuries. I think car seats are involved in all of that as well. So we're trying to help with that solution as well.
Yes, I think I did see some statistics around the number of those accidents that are a car seat carrier
They're
falling
high.
off.
I
It's
think they're around 1,200 a year. Infant car seats falling off shopping carts, again, it's an emerging hazard to support what Kimberly's saying. As those infant car seats got more convenient to carry, they were more ergonomically shaped, so they were easier to carry.
right.
The early ones were they were unbelievably heavy, but it's now at a point where moms are just unsnapping the infant car seat and carrying that car seat all over. Um, and it that in terms of an emerging trend, that is new relatively in the last 10 years. As Kimberly said, 97% of moms walking into a store with an infant arrive carrying their infant car seat, and they're faced with that challenge on the spot. What am I going to do with it now?
Right.
Where am I going to put it?
And we've even heard some moms say, I have one cart just for the carrier, and then I pull another one behind me, which is not a very convenient way to shop. The thing that I like about the Safe Dog is it is so securely fastened to that cart. It's not just, a little bit strapped on there. It is really, really installed securely, so it's not gonna move. And then you've got the strap on top of it, so you put in the infant carrier, you strap them in, they're nice and safe.
Like anything to do with children, it's over-engineered for safety and for durability to make sure that it lasts because it's going to get a tough life. It's sitting on a shopping cart. They get banged around all day long. So making sure that it can survive, many years of abuse and still function as it's supposed to be. The safety components are engineered into the design to make sure that it can stand up to that kind of abuse.
Mhm. And one of the things that I love that I think it's really cool that we do is we work with all the shopping cart manufacturers. So we test the shopping carts to make sure we do a tip test to make sure that once that safe dock is mounted to the shopping cart, we know that that cart is safe for a safe dock. And so if any retailers have questions about that, we know at any given time which ones it'll work on and which ones it won't. So when retailers do install them on their shopping carts, they can have a real peace of mind. Ever since they were introduced in 2012, we've had 0 incidents.
0.
Right. And so if you have the 4 symbol seat flap telling your customer you can't put your car seat up there, and then you offer no solution to them, and then they put it down on the cart and they can't buy as much. To me, retailers are shooting themselves in the foot.
Right, and the Safe Dock is one of those products that moms just they go crazy over it. They love it
Absolutely.
because it does solve that problem. They're not pulling it with them, they're not putting it inside the cart and not having to try and balance it. And yeah, it's one of those things every time I see one at a store now, I'm like, "Yeah, that store is doing it right, that store is doing it right."
Right.
If they have it where the moms can get to it.
That's
Not way
Sure.
in the back, right.
that is
We
right.
were touring stores yesterday. We arrived down here on a Sunday, so we spent some time out in HEB stores yesterday afternoon, and we were looking at firsthand in some really busy stores the issues that the parents deal with infants, and we saw in a lot of cases what you just described, a mom pushing pushing a stroller and dragging a shopping cart, or shopping with somebody else so that somebody could push the shopping cart, which obviously doesn't always work out. During the week, that second person might not be available to help mom in the store. It was surprising yesterday
It
on
was.
to watch
Yeah.
the difficulties that people face, especially with multiple children and a car seat. Then it gets even more complicated. We took some interesting pictures yesterday on how people were overcoming that challenge in the store, and it's not always safe. They're doing the best they can to get the groceries they need, but it's what we were describing before. You can tell this is not a convenient trip for them, and this wouldn't go on the list of making them feel safe about what was happening. It was a busy store, and their kids were scattered, and they were trying to corral them and get what they needed.
And if you reduce that friction, you help with their mental load. So all they can focus on is enjoyment in the store. And that's what I was talking about. Like it really truly is safety to the retailer, but for the customer, it's customer experience.
Right. And if you want moms to shop beyond their must-haves on their shopping list, you have to make it where they are like, yes, I can spend 5 more minutes in this place and it's going to be okay. So, what are the things that are holding retailers back from making their stores safer? So, especially for their youngest customers.
I don't think there's anything really holding them back. I think there is a giant disconnect. I look at the it's really interesting. Retail has identified this market segment, that new family demographic, as their most important demographic. So we've heard the CEO of Kroger Corporation and Walmart and Target all talking about what they're doing for that new family demographic, how important it is, the marketing efforts that they're placing, especially electronically, on that new family demographic, and then behind that, supporting them with all of the purchase items to make sure that they're available in the stores, whether it's Kroger stores adding in strollers and cribs and children's clothing and toys for children as opposed to just food, with Target extending its product line to make sure that they have Walmart too, all the major retailers making sure that they have the products available for that market segment and that they're electronically marketing to that market segment. Yet, when you watch that minivan arrive in the parking lot, and then what mom goes through from the time that she opens her door and grabs her infant car seat or her toddler, and she's trying to corral that toddler and her infant, and then walks to the front of the store with the toddler in one hand and the car seat in the other, or two toddlers and the car seat, and tries to find a shopping cart that's not jammed, or tries to find a shopping cart only to find it's got a broken seatbelt. And it's already starting to go wrong for that mom, and the store's not seeing that. And then what do they do at that point? How do they then place their children in a comfortable, controlled environment and get them through the store? And that's where our products come in. We see retailers super focused on this demographic, but overlooking that granular experience, what's really happening to mom, not spending time in the front of the store, which we've spent hours in the front of these stores watching this happen time and time again, watching what actually happens to mom and what her journey looks like as she starts shopping in her favorite store.
Right.
And I think it's awareness in dollars. I
Yes.
think that a lot of retailers aren't aware. I think that we've tried to spread the message, and sometimes it doesn't make it up to the decision makers.
Mhm.
And then in terms of the dollars, I agree with Simon. They're spending, especially with COVID, all their focus on like pick carts, so that people can come pick up their groceries, but somebody's going to pick it for them in the store. They're looking at the electronic data and giving the customer a better experience that way. But I don't think that it's kind of a nice to have, not a must have. And I think that that's something that we're trying to say, just like, say, a diaper changing station in the restroom. 30 years ago, that was unheard of. And the stores that adopted it early, those are the ones that got the mom's dollars. Well, I think that, same thing here. The ones that are the early adopters, mom are going to flock to those stores and do. And the ones that are still saying, it's a nice to have, it's not a must have. I don't know if we want to devote our dollars to that this year. They're the ones that are behind. This equipment is pretty inexpensive, and to give them a better experience, I think it really can elevate the retail experience. I think every retailer should be looking at it.
There's certainly retailers that have done a good job. They've got it right. There are certain
Absolutely. Yeah.
retailers out there that have identified this need and they're treating it as a competitive advantage. So they did the research, they put the equipment in, they tested it, and they compared the basket value of a mom with, let's say, an infant car seat right in the basket compared to a mom with an infant car seat up in a safe dock and a basket full of groceries. And then, okay, financially, this is a win for this retailer. And then when they talk to the moms are like, look, you're providing me a great customer experience. So the retailer's getting a bigger basket ring. They're getting the bonus of a better customer experience for the shopper. So it's a win all the way around. And then over to the equipment that holds two children in the back. We've done some comparisons amongst that equipment, and so have the retailers. They've compared various equipment that's available and the seating capacity and the age ranges that they're designed for and the shopping cart baskets that they're attached to. And they have decided what works for them, and it is that full-size basket for a growing family. And it is the ability to have three children on one in the shopping cart and two
I mean, one in
in
the
the
safe dock
with that one. What could be in the safe dock, it could be one sitting in the
in the
shopping
seat.
cart, sure, and two on the shop along device in the back. And those kids could be 8 or 9 years old. They can definitely walk. They just don't want to.
Right.
Right.
They're happy to sit there on their phone while mom's shopping. And that's super convenient for mom.
That's a great point. The safe dock and the shop along combined on the same shopping cart, safe dock and shop along combined on the same shopping cart is one of the only solutions you can give to a mother that's dealing with her newborn and a toddler.
I think you should start calling that the limousine.
The limo.
Right?
Yeah,
Sure.
this is the limo. Free marketing tip for you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Kimberly wanted to ask you something around the education piece for things like safe dock and shop, and then I wanted to come to you for the seatbelt safety piece. You've been getting requests from some major retailers to educate their store managers about the equipment that's actually available because they can get it, they can
Yes.
order it from the store catalog,
Yes.
whatever system they have.
Yeah.
But there are so many stores that have never even seen the equipment that's available to them for safety and convenience for their customers. Tell me about how that's going.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, right? Because we did identify that awareness piece. And some of these, well, the majority of them, right? These major retailers have made the decision and saw the value in Safe Dock and Shop Along and have put it in their ordering system. But at the store level, because they've never seen the equipment before, because the turnovers in the store, or, whatever various reason, they're not putting the equipment in. So we decided to do some marketing campaigns, both to end users, because new moms are coming up all the time and they don't know about the safe dock. They just had their first baby, right? And then we're doing campaigns to the stores saying, hey, this stuff is already in your system. And we've been telling them what their actual item number or ordering number is. And it's been going amazing because stores are now going, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. It's already in our ordering system. Well, let's go ahead and just make the purchase now. And again, the equipment is not very expensive. It's kind of a no brainer on the return on investment to put a few in your store and hear your customers rave.
Right. It doesn't take that many to, it depends on, how big your store is and how many carts you have. But it doesn't take that many for your store to stand out as, oh, this is the one where families can go shop.
Yeah, we recommend about 2% of your fleet. So if there's 300 carts, about 6.
Yeah.
Right? And the other piece that you alluded to was you can't put them around back. You can't put them at the end of the shopping cart row. You got to keep them right up front. I always like to say the customer needs to get them with just one pull. Because when you're a mom walking in with toddlers and baby and all of that, you're not going to pull out 16 carts to try to get to that one cart. You're not. And then you're going to shop unsafe and then you're not going to get as much as you need and then you're going to be frustrated and that's not a good experience. So, the retailers that do make the investment, I like to say, keep them up front where they can get to it with just one pull.
For sure. Now back to seatbelts. It used to be the coolest new thing, back in the 80s when it was first invented by Paul Giampaolo, founder of SafeStrap. So people were using it as a competitive advantage. Oh, come to our store. We have the shopping cart seatbelts. We have the safety restraints for your child. And then it became the standard. And then it became a standard that, shopping centers are required to follow. But now something has happened where we're seeing a decline in actual usable seatbelts on shopping carts. Tell me what's going on with that. How
Sure,
that's evolved.
it's a real challenge on the education side, which we're working on now, and retailers are beginning to identify it too, as they're getting complaints from customers saying, the condition of your shopping carts, why are there so many missing or broken restraints, especially considering a shopping cart is so expensive to replace. So they try and get as much mileage out of a shopping cart as possible, but Going back probably 10 years ago, there were outside companies, private companies, whose job it was to travel around and maintain the shopping carts. They were hired, they had contracts, they worked for the retail industry. So, and this would be for almost all the majors. They had private companies that would come out twice, three times, four times a year, and they would fix the wheels, the wobbly wheels. They would fix those wobbly wheels. They would fix any missing or broken plastic pieces. They would change out the child restraints, touch up any spray paint on the side of the shopping cart, and generally maintain the fleet. And then more recently, the retail industry began to bring that in-house, and we're seeing that with most of the majors. So as they bring that in-house, they have there's a component of education that needs to go with it. So yes, replacement shopping cart seatbelts are available at the ordering system for every major retailer. It's whether the store managers know that the shopping carts need to be maintained. And when we're out in the field chatting with store managers at stores with shopping carts that are subpar, that need to be pulled out of service, that their customers are using or complaining about, and we tell them the requirement is you are required under the standard to maintain these shopping carts consistent with the standard, which means to have a working restraint. They're surprised. I am? Really? I thought we had maintenance companies. No, it's an in-house safety item now, or your in-house maintenance personnel are taking care of. Facilities maintenance are supposed to be taking care of it. And that can be tricky. So for facilities maintenance folks that are dealing with refrigeration units that are going down and HVAC units that are causing problems, or electric doors that are failing, they're getting a lot of attention during the day. But perhaps the shopping carts are being overlooked right now, and that is becoming a serious issue for the retail industry and something that we're working pretty hard to resolve.
And the tragic thing is it's such an easy fix.
Cease.
You've replaced a lot of shopping cart
Sure.
seatbelts yourself. What, 60 seconds?
Faster than that. I mean, eventually, when you're faced with a store of, if you're doing a lot, 1,000, 1,200, you're gonna have sore fingers at the end of the day. But you're right. It's less than a minute.
And
It's very,
nobody's,
very
unless it's
simple
like
process.
brand new, like replacing them all. You're talking about every day
You're cherry
you
picking.
review
Yeah.
them, but you're not replacing them all at
Two,
once. It's
four, right?
make it's a 5-minute check
Yeah.
But I
each
think where
day.
he's going with that is that's the state of the shopping cart
Oh, it
seatbelts
is.
now.
It's very sad.
It's like the whole fleet kind of
Yeah,
needs to
there
be
are
looked
some
at.
stores where it looks like they haven't touched them in 5 years, 10 years.
Sometimes longer. And I think where a lot of that came from is, and it was exacerbated by COVID. So obviously the curbside pickup was growing and growing, and home delivery was growing, and retail as an industry was really focused on building out the infrastructure to support that. And it was a massive undertaking, redesigning stores and hiring picking staff and setting the stores up to support that side of retail. And they stopped spending as much money on keeping their stores looking as good as they used to. And one of the items that perhaps fell by the wayside was shopping carts. And those shopping carts were getting older and older. And it's not uncommon for us to see shopping carts out in the field that are 12 plus years old. So they have, for $110, $115 shopping cart 12 years ago, they have certainly had their use out of it, but the condition of the carts, they're beat up. I mean, so for those retailers, maintenance becomes a really big deal. Other retailers are perhaps doing a better job at maintaining their fleets and replacing shopping carts as they need to. And obviously, less shopping cart maintenance needs to be done on a newer fleet.
And we've tried to come alongside them to support them, because they do have the facility maintenance that are in store, but they also have the cart retrieval people that are bringing the carts back into the store every day, and they could take a quick look at each seat belt, maybe if they're gathering 8 or 10 carts, and before they put them back into service, if they don't want them to replace the belt, at least they could train their front end staff to remove the cart from service per the ASTM retailer responsibilities. But then we've also made a training video that if they could train some of their front end staff, that maybe at the end of the day, the ones that were removed out of service, they could go ahead and change those belts. We're trying to do everything we can to support stores in trying to make this effort.
Right.
come up a little
And
better.
we have to be pretty flexible too, because retailers all have their own system. Like
Exactly.
Walmart's system really is the store manager with front end staff look at the shopping carts and they don't perform the maintenance. They will then have a ticket written for the facilities maintenance team. So they'll put a ticket in saying, "Hey, our shopping carts need some maintenance." But it's educating those store managers, "Hey, you got to take that time, each month or each week to take a look at the condition of your shopping carts and then trigger that facilities maintenance ticket if it's needed." Other retailers handle it slightly different ways. So we've made videos to support different retailers depending on what their process is internally.
Right. And because it can't all be finger wagging, check your seatbelts. We also have a celebration program to recognize the retailers who are getting it right.
Sure.
Golden Seatbelt Award. That's been a very fun thing to actually be able to get out there and do this year. I know some of the corporate level retailers looked at that and said, "Yeah, let's make that part of something that we make an aspect of our culture because it does feel like a nicer pat on the back to say we recognize that your shopping carts are in good shape. You've got a system in place. Your leadership is taking responsibility for this as part of your safety culture." And so that's been nice to be able to recognize stores that are stepping up and making the simple changes quick, easy, affordable that it takes to make sure that every shopping cart seatbelt is in good shape.
Absolutely. I think as a company, SafeStrap has a little bit jumped on the bandwagon of what retail is already doing. And retail is spending a lot of time and effort congratulating and supporting store managers and district managers and regional managers that are doing an amazing job. And we looked at that trend and said, well, we want to do that too. Clearly, positive reinforcement goes further than saying, as you said, the finger wagging, like you guys are doing a terrible job. Nobody wants to hear that. But when the store, 4 stores over, receives an award for an outstanding commitment to customer safety, which is recognized by us and their district managers and corporate level safety, all saying, well done. Other stores are like, oh, geez, has anybody checked our shopping carts? Could somebody check the shopping carts today? So it's having a positive effect and doing it in a positive way.
The other aspect of safety that you guys have an invention for, which is the pallet guard. So stores are aware of trip and fall accidents is one of the most common things that happens in a retail environment that ends up causing a problem for people, not just their employees, but also customers. So Kimberly, tell us about pallet guard.
Pallet Guard is a product that whenever retailers want to merchandise off of a pallet that's made to transport goods, in less than 60 seconds, you can drop the pallet on the floor, wrap the pallet with a pallet guard, and it turns it into a really nice merchandising display. So it does unify store design. It makes it look great. But the other thing that it does is it hides the splinters and the uneven boards and things like that that could hurt kids. And also it helps with those trips and falls because we have seen quite a few cases where customers were shopping for something off of a pallet. It was not covered with a pallet guard. They got their foot stuck in the pallet itself and then turned and hurt themselves. So it's going to prevent that as well. Also, we have different heights of pallet guard. Depending on which height you get, it could also help with product protection so that the shopping cart chassis hits the pallet guard as opposed to the product that's on the pallet. So no more busted bags or spills that also could cause trips and falls, in addition to the cost of the product.
And Simon, I know you've said summertime is popular for this because watermelons are not something that you want to have to individually pick up and move. If you
Yeah.
can just drop a pallet of watermelons and, take 2 minutes to put a pallet guard around it, you're good to go.
They're a great example because a pallet of watermelons typically shows up as what's called a gaylord in retail. It's a heavy cardboard box that's 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet high. And to lift that gaylord off of a dirty, broken wooden pallet that came from the farm 3 days ago onto a plastic stack base would require somebody to empty the gaylord of watermelons. And where do you put them? And you put them where? On the
They're rolling
floor,
down the aisle.
right? And then move the empty box onto a plastic stack, and then refill it, and then have to do that again at 11 o'clock because they're being sold for $6 each, and they're they're a fast-moving item. So, yes, that's pallet guards are a lifesaver when it comes to that sort of thing, whether it's watermelon or sweet corn or apples or pumpkins in the fall. But then they sort of morphed into we're seeing some other trends now, with fast moving merchandise, and one that we were looking at yesterday in HEB stores. We see them all over, and that's what are called complex shippers, where the design that the palette of merchandise, whether it be vitamin bottles or it could be shampoos or it could be any number of products, are coming already set on a pallet with a wooden lid, sorry, with a cardboard lid that gets lifted off, and that pallet is ready to go. It doesn't need to be transferred onto the shelf, but it's still sitting on a wooden pallet. So again, we'll see those new displays. We'll see retailers using our pallet card around those.
And from a safety perspective, we are talking about thousands and thousands of pallet related injuries in stores every year, often with senior customers, where at fall it could be something that's the last time they walk. I mean, it's not something to mess around with. And Kimberly, I know you mentioned that there was a lawsuit recently, and pallet guard is now like the recommended best practice as a result. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit with a major retailer that actually did settle, and that retailer had to pay $7.5 million to a customer who was shopping for a watermelon out of a Gaylord, got his foot stuck, turned, and broke his hip. Again, when we're looking at OSHA versus, customer safety, the cost of that, right? And then the branding issues that you get around that are quite large. Everybody says, well, it's a nice to have, it's not a must have. Is it the law? Well, it's not necessarily the law, but it is in case law. And attorneys are really good at using case law to sell for their clients.
Right.
And those are just the ones that we're seeing, right, that are coming out into the public. There are so many cases that are settled behind the scenes that you don't even see the dollar amount for. And so it's a real problem. And I think we saw the rise around COVID. Again, people were trying to get the paper towels and the toilet paper, and they were just dropping pallets, dropping pallets, dropping pallets. And then they found that that's a labor savings, right? To be able to just drop a pallet and these high moving items, people can shop off of it. So we're seeing pallets under racks, we're seeing pallets in holiday aisles, we're seeing pallets around racetracks, we're seeing pallets everywhere in the store. So it's a really high trend. So Pallet Guard is really helping out some major retailers, also save labor, safety, and even employee safety. I've heard of a couple different employees that have gotten themselves hurt tripping over a pallet, and then they're out with the workman's comp and the time lost, and they're hurt. So just such a simple and low cost solution that sets up in less than 60 seconds to solve all of these issues. I just think it's worth the investment.
Right. And I know you're at least talking to one retailer who's like, this is required at all our stores.
Absolutely.
It's not even an option to say, oh, we don't need it. Yeah, you do.
This is a retailer who is really good at using Pallet Guard, and they came back and they had done. They were telling me they had done major research with lawyers and insurance companies and lots of different firms. Is Pallet Guard really worth the investment? Can't we just drop the pallets and let it go? And in all of their research that they did independently from us, they came back and said it's a no-brainer. The costs, the benefits outweigh the cost. The costs are too high if we don't use Pallet Guard. So we are committing to a Pallet Guard program and recently put that through to all their stores. And we've seen about a 30% increase in Pallet Guard sales just because I think, again, awareness and then people making the commitment to the dollars.
And as the usage has grown, the requirements from retail have grown too. So retail industry has come back to us and said we need a pallet guard that's going to work on a half pallet or a quarter pallet. And I'm thinking the quarter pallets really. But when I see what a retailer like Publix in Florida does with quarter pallets down their refrigerated sections, they look awesome. But they don't want that quarter pallet exposed. So we have a pallet guard for a quarter pallet, a pallet guard for a half pallet. And then, of course, if you drop multiple pallets, you can change the shape of the pallet guards and address a run of 3 pallets or 23 pallets if you want to. There's a way to do that. So it's a super versatile product, and it's done really well for the company, and it's made retailers really happy.
Right. One of the things that I like about Safe Strap is that It's seeing and solving the problems that other people just miss or ignore. And the solutions, they're sensible, they are affordable, they're easy to use. It's just like you keep saying, it's a no-brainer.
We can't claim total responsibility for the ideas behind these products. Often it's the retail industry that comes to SafeStrap to say, we have an emerging problem, um, and we need it addressed, and we want you guys to solve the problem, and we'll sit down with the engineers and we'll design and solve that problem the best way we can. And more often than not, that's how our products have come into play. The retail industry coming to us saying, "This is what's happening. Fix it."
Anybody could trip over a pallet. It could be your people, it could be the
Yes.
customers in your store. So let's circle back to this safety culture topic. Safety starts with awareness. What's the number one thing that you want to make retailers aware of in their stores?
It would be hard to choose because there are several things we'd like to make them aware of. But I would say number one would be maintaining your shopping carts. Like, because the number of accidents is so high, that's a great place to start. It's such a simple solution. You know, the restraints are already available. It's just a matter of identifying how many carts need to be replaced and cleaned up, and that can be done very quickly. So I would say that's that would be the primary focus. And then in behind that, we'll be educating retail about, in terms of safety, you can provide other equipment, whether it be the pallet guard or the safe dock or the shop along, and you can reduce accident rates and provide a more convenient a shopping trip, a safer shopping trip for your customers.
And increased basket ring. I think shopping carts too would be the number one for me, because whether you're a parent or not, the shopping cart is the one thing your customer touches that represents your brand from the time they come in till the time that they leave. Don't ignore your shopping cart.
I can tell you if I'm bringing my purse to the store with me,
Yes,
I'm gonna strap that
yes,
thing
they do.
in. And there's a whole long story that I'll tell in another podcast about why I choose to do that. But I'm looking for a working
Yes.
safety restraint. Kimberly, from your perspective, what separates retailers with a strong safety culture from the ones that are struggling? What are some of the themes that you see?
I think that it's the ones that don't just look at the OSHA checklists. I think it's the ones that kind of they're looking in their store at all times for different things that are going on or that could be an issue, crowded aisles or merchandise falling or this one company it was really cool. They would give like little notes that were kind of like play on words about like you did a great job, but and like here's a cookie, and they gave him cookies or a piece of pizza or whatever. And it's really small, but these people are working hard every day. Your employees are working hard every day. So reward that kind of behavior to get them to be looking out for it at all times. And if they can't do something about it, at least bringing it to the people's attention. I find that stores that are doing that are the ones that it's like they're entrenched in it. They're constantly looking out for it, and they train their employees too as well.
Daisy, you use the term culture, and I think that's what the retail industry is determined to create, is a culture of safety. And some of the retailers are doing an incredible job at that, and it begins at the top. You'll see district managers walking through the store and straightening shelves and picking up items off the, garbage off the floor. Nobody's above safety, and they really ingrain that with their staff. Stores that work hard to embrace the safety culture from top to bottom, I think, are doing the best job. When employees are seeing their store managers taking the same responsibility for a safe store that they are, they're inspired. They're keeping the quality of the store and their safety program at the very top, as opposed to other stores where their safety program is written out and it's given lip service, and it's people are forced to go take a quick look around the store on a Friday afternoon or a Saturday morning. They pale in comparison. And some of the major retailers have spent an enormous amount of time and effort developing that safety culture.
And you can tell when you go into a store, this is a store that takes pride in what they do. And safety is an important piece of that.
Big time.
Totally agree. So, what's the biggest misconception that people have about retail liability when it comes to safety? I know you mentioned that a lot of store managers don't even realize there's a standard to follow for shopping cart seat belts. Anything else that comes to mind?
Unlike OSHA that's regulated and stuff, that's a recommendation. But like we've talked about before, when an accident happens, Lawyers will use the ASTM
It's the
standards.
first place
So
they go.
talk about that, the retailer
Sure.
responsibility.
So when you because we said the accident rates are so high, there are always lawsuits involving families where a child has been hurt in the retail industry. And when they bring in these prosecuting attorneys, the first thing they do is take a look to see if there is a standard. And then when they look and see that there is a shopping cart standard and the requirement is simple, you must provide working restraints on your shopping carts or take them out of service. Then they look at, well, how much is a child restraint? And child restraints are $2 a piece. When they look at the nature of the injuries to the child and a missing $2 item, if the case does go to court, and more often than not, they're settled for these absorbent numbers, it becomes very difficult for the retailer to get out of being in trouble because the prosecuting attorneys, should it go in front of a jury, they're going to ask the question, did you know that this was a requirement? Did you know that you were supposed to have working restraints? And of course, the retail industry does, whether the store managers know or not. And then it quickly moves to, okay, the retailer is going to be fined, heavily fined, for not following a minimum voluntary standard, not meeting that minimum voluntary standard.
And that parent might have chosen a cart that didn't have a shopping cart seatbelt on it, or they might have chosen a cart that had a shopping cart seatbelt and didn't use it. It doesn't matter. If that child gets hurt,
Yep,
and there's not working seatbelts on all the carts, it's going to be an issue.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So, final question, and this is for the parents in the audience. What's one thing that they should always do when they go shopping with little kids?
Check to make sure that there's a working restraint and use it.
Absolutely. All right. Any final closing words around retail safety, accident prevention, and what you hope to see change over the next 5 years?
I think for retailers to take the time to really look at that granular customer experience, to stand at the entrance, take the time to stand at the entrance and watch what happens from the time a mom or a dad, a caregiver, gets out of their minivan with their children and watch what that experience looks like, and then putting the pieces together and supporting it with equipment becomes very easy and very simple.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for joining me today. This wraps our episode of the Marketing Blender Show. Be sure to check the show notes to learn more about SafeStrap, and we'll see you next time. Click like and subscribe, and onward and upward.